Okay, I hope you enjoyed that. It was an absolute total indulgence on my part making it. I'll just explain why I did it. Why not? Basically, in Ireland, after Christmas, in that space between Christmas Day and New Year's Eve, we have this kind of total nothingness, which is fantastic, and it's the best time of the year to do something nonsensical, like I have just done. But there is a purpose to it, and like all of my indulgences, I'm going to share the purpose with you because you might actually get some interesting insight from it. So, I wanted to try and recreate one of Brian May's multi-part harmony orchestration things, and I didn't want to take a Queen song and just show you all the different parts of it because what's the point in that? I wanted to take something that had never received this treatment and try and make it into something that Brian might have done himself. And the reason why I wanted to do that is because if I had done it, then I can explain to you how I did it because I can't necessarily ring up Brian and give him an interview on this channel. Maybe one day. Let's see if we can get the subscriber count up and get to that point. Anyway, let's have a little look at it. I'm a middle-aged dad, so I did do the Disneyland Paris thing at one point. So this piece of music follows you around everywhere, and it's been living in the back of my brain for 5 years, I think. And it's a really, really cool melody. And I don't know anything about the history about it, and it's not for now, but those guys that were recording scores for animations back in the 30s, they were just so good at finding hooks that reflected the story that was going on and were real proper set pieces that could be set to the animation afterwards. So that's me outed as a Disney fan, very rock and roll. But let's have a look at how I did this. So when you're doing something like this, the best place to start is the chord structure underneath it. And to that end, I sat down with the original film version of it, worked out what I thought was the chords. I'm subject to correction and all of that fun stuff because I couldn't find a score from the film version. This song has been covered so many times, but you can get scores for it, you know, loads of different versions that pop up in Disneyland and have been released and other things. But the original one, you can't do it. So the original one plays in the key of E, which I was delighted with because E is a very guitar-friendly key, so I didn't have to transpose it. So let's have a look at the chords and I'll just talk a little bit about the tone for the little plinky plonky rhythm bit underneath it. So for the tone, I used it's sort of a typical live Brian May sound, which is a left amp with chorus and a right amp that's dry, both Vox AC30s flat out. I'm using a treble booster, and on the Brian May guitar, I'm using these two pickups out of phase. You never really hear anybody using this, least of all Brian, but when you do hear it, it's usually for picked clean arpeggio passages. It's a very, very, what's the word? It's like an old battered Telecaster kind of sound. So I'm using the original channel settings from the recording so you can hear I have an awful lot of reverb on it too. And the idea with the reverb was just to help space it out and to, you know, not make the guitar sound particularly an isolated lead guitar. Because when Brian May usually does this, it's usually in the context of a song. So you'll have bass, drums, backing vocals, and possibly keys and piano to help support it. So this is a bit of a more dangerous one because it's just guitars, spare for the little cymbal splashes that I have in the middle eight. Anyway, let's look at the chords. So the structure of this seems to be E, and then C sharp 7, which I played like this, and then F sharp minor, and then B, F sharp minor, and then this lovely slide into E. And then there's this really, really nice sort of chord here, which is sort of an E with a 9 on top, and then a C7, and then F minor 7, and then F sharp minor, sorry, that was F sharp minor 7th, B, and then back to E again. And that's all the melody is. Now, there is a middle 8 section, which I should have written out, but I had a very late night just working it out on the go. But we'll have a quick look at it. So the start of it is an A minor with an F sharp on it. So I'm going to say A minor 6 to an E. And then it goes... Now, I wasn't too sure what the full chords for that run is because the strings are just playing in parallel thirds to my ear. So it was just treated like that. And then there was another part which is with the G sharp. And again, just filled it out with parallel thirds, and then it goes back to the main theme again. So if you were working with chords, at the very least what you could do is record each note of the chord separately. And that would give you something close to a Brian May style harmony, but that's not what we did here. So we'll have a little look at the track, and I'll just show you the different parts. So as you heard in the original, I didn't really do anything with a harmony part, but for the second go of the verse, I flew in all of these lovely sort of picked parts here. So we're just going to bring one of them up now, and I'll just show you the sound. So to get a sort of a nice sort of cello-y kind of sound out of any electric guitar, but particularly with a Brian May piece, if you play notes that you would normally voice, say lower down the neck in the sort of vestigial part of the neck past the 12th fret on the lower strings, they do sound very cello-like. Compared to, which is a bit brighter or even. And that's the great thing about the guitar, is that you can play some notes 3 times on the neck, or 3 different places on the neck, and they have a very different timbre to each other. Now, if you record each of those on top of each other in different positions, things start to sound very much like the string section of an orchestra. So that's kind of the approach that I adopted. Now, just going back to the sounds, everything other than the rhythm parts and some of the power chords recorded, this is very heavy, sorry, oops, with a ToneX model of one of these. Now, have you ever heard of this? This is Brian May's famous Deacy amp, and this was a pet project of mine at the tail end of last year and throughout a lot of this year, which was getting a copy of it because it's very difficult. Now, I'll do a full video about this crazy amp again, but the highlights are it's a hi-fi speaker from the late 60s and the circuit from a Rhodesian radio. Now, I might have mentioned that one before, but I've been running a bit of a project capturing this in ToneX. I'll have a preset for some of these parts attached below that you can use to try it out yourself, but there'll be a full set of captures for this, the Quad Cortex, and possibly the other neural one when I figure it out as well, just so everybody can have a go at the sound of this amazing amp, because it's quite difficult to get one. So it's a bit of a strange one because it's full range. Guitar amp speakers usually have a sort of a slope on them. I talked about this before, where they cut out a lot of the natural frequencies of the guitar, and necessarily so because they're quite harsh. But this thing quite likes them. And when you plug a treble booster into it, it compresses it and makes the whole thing sound very violin-like. Now, I didn't actually use this for the recording because it's actually quite loud, and we're in an apartment here in the inner city of Dublin, so I would have been very, unpopular. But I did use the ToneX captures, which are quite good, and lots of ambience and reverb. So some of the parts that I would have done under the verses, I'll just show you one of them. So this one is coming into the harmony section. And what that does is sort of introduces the second verse, but conversely going backwards, and I took this straight from the original. And what's happening is the notes that are going up higher, so the C sharp, they both start in C sharp, both runs, and then the next note is, is D sharp, and if you're going backwards, it's B, so they're a third away from each other. And then when I go up again to E, it's a B flat on the other part, and E and B flat give a sort of a dissonant, flat 5 sound, which tickles the ear a little bit. And then I get to A, and going up the other side, I hit an F sharp, which is that lovely dyad, if you like, there now. And then the final note in this one going backwards is G sharp. And then I arrive at a B here, so that's the guts of an E chord, which is the first chord of the verse. After that, I followed the chord structure with different parts, and it worked really, really well. It sounded really sweet. I might post the multi-track of this if anyone wants to study it, because a lot of it was trial and error. Anyway, we'll talk about the middle 8 then next, so I'll just play that part. So that's the verse, and then we get it, whoops. And check this out. So just for the harmony part there, I did something that's actually quite easy to do, which was an arpeggio. And the arpeggio was played with these two pickups. And that's just an E major chord, because that's the chord that's happening there. And the next thing, oh, excuse me, I'm going to just turn off the fuzz. I just took different intervals of the chord. So that's like from an E-shaped E chord, starting on the 5th. And then I did it from here. And I think I did one starting on the 3rd as well. And when they stack on top of each other, they give you that lovely sort of trumpet fanfare type of sound. Anyway, let's have a look and see how it was played. So I'm just going to bring up the lead sound that I was using. Okay, let's see how that sounds. Now, if you look at the film, I've deliberately put in all the times that I changed pickups and volume settings, just because you can see what you sort of have to do in this. What I should have done if I was recording this in the studio was recorded each part separately. But when I record solos for this channel, I always like to film the whole thing in one take if I can, just so you can see that this is real and playable and something that you can do yourself at home. But anyway, let's have a look at the start of it. Now, this pickup on its own in Brian May Land is, I don't know, what's the most famous use of it? The second part of the solo from Killer Queen. I think it's popped up on a couple of other things, but that's its most famous use, and it's quite mellow. It should, by right, sound like a Strat, but it doesn't actually sound like a Strat. To me, it sounds a bit like a Neck P90 or a Mini Humbucker, because it's quite fat. And particularly given its location as well on this guitar, because usually on a Gibson guitar, actually even on a Stratocaster guitar, that pickup would be picked up, placed under where the 24th fret would go. So it's actually up a little higher again from that. So that gives it a fairly unique sound. So I started the melody with this one, with the volume just maybe a quarter turn up, and you get this lovely. So it's a real nice plummy sort of sound. Now I actually might have had it a little lower because it's kind of clean. And I'll just show you what I did for the melody. So, from a tonal point of view, the articulations are done with your finger. Now, I did do a video before about when you use a sixpence and when you use your finger, just as a little 2-minute joke thing. But on stage, I'll actually, even with the live material, move between the two of these more often than people think. And some solos just need that, because the fat at the tip of your finger acts a little bit like a bow. So there's very little attack to the notes. They have a kind of a rounded sort of soft rise, which is really, really nice. And with the low volume and the plummy pickup, it's just really violin-like. Now, to give more of that violin type feel, because I think that's what we're going after with these sort of parts, and Brian would say himself that solos are like a song within a song, so they're very vocal. And voices don't work like guitars. They don't go. We get slides and bends and vibrato, and that's what makes things sound expressive and vocal. So this is a good one to learn from that point of view, because we start with this lovely B, and then what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to pre-bend this A up to B. So that's the 10th fret on the B up to the 12th fret on the B. So it's like, and pull off to that note. And that's 10, 11, if you like, F to F sharp on the G, to 14 on the B, and some vibrato. Now I have a video that I'll probably try and figure out to link into the sort of above bit here, where I actually talk about how you can do bends and vibrato. But doing pre-bends is quite difficult, and it's a bit hit and miss even for me that's doing them all the time. So it's more of a practice thing, but check out that video and get some tips on that. So it starts off like that, and that's what's happening over those 3 chords going on. So you can see that he's mapped the melody, the original composer, with those chords. And then we go up to D sharp, and I voice it on the D just because it's nice and soft at that point, although sometimes I will play it down here. We'll see how in a moment. And then another pre-bend from the C sharp to a D sharp on the B string. And then pull off to 12. 11, 12, and then a nice E harmonic. Now, I just did the harmonic on the fly when I was recording this. There's no reason for it at this point, but when I do another harmonic later, you'll see what the use of them is, because it frees up your hands to move controls. Anyway, the next bit then is a nice sort of diatonic sort of descend, starting on F sharp, I think. And I do that by pre-bending the 17th fret on the B up to semitones to F sharp. And it's just such a sweet move, and it's something that you hear a lot in solos, like A Winter's Tale, which was also recorded with a Deacy amp, and it's a real nice sound. So just on that one, and then another full tone bend on 14 on the B, pre-bend, let it down, pull off, and slide to 10, 9, 7, and you can see now that it's very violin-like when you play that phrase in a row, because there's very little attack to the notes, because I only pick it the once or twice. And then the first time around, he ends the melody by going C sharp, D sharp, 4th fret on the B, and then a harmonic on the 12th fret of the B. And the reason why I played a harmonic was because I knew I was recording all of the melody sections in a row, and I needed to reach down for the volume. And I could have played here and done that, but what happens is with this sound, it's still quite gainy even though I have the volume down, but the strings start to ring in sympathy without a mute on them. So by hitting a harmonic, I was still able to maintain control over the lower strings. And then I turned the volume up to nearly full, and that gives a little bit more drama to the sound. And you see that the phrasing is very similar to the first time around. Except this time around, I ended that phrase all the way up here on the 19th fret of the B, which is G sharp. And that's just something of a sort of in the moment sort of guess of a note, because in the original version, the original singer, the actor, actually did do that on the last verse, but I thought it was nice there. And one thing I'll just point out is you'll notice that I'm playing a lot of this on the B string and not the E string. And there's a reason for that. That's something that Brian does himself. And I have it in good authority. It's because it's actually very difficult to play in the E string in his guitar due to fret wear. But he's actually always naturally sort of voiced stuff that you would probably play in lower positions and higher positions, because of the thickness of this string. It responds a lot better with the speaker too, so it's always worth looking at it from that point of view. So then we do the other section again, the bends, the I think I did that. And then watch this. So it's the same as the first phrase, except I end on that high E up there. Now, this next section is a sort of a bend tour de force. Actually, maybe I did use a harmonic there. I'll have to watch the video again. 12th fret harmonic, actually, because what I have to do is change the switches so we have these two on in phase, and the volume definitely 100% on full, because this bit is quite dramatic. So that phrase there, F sharp, which is 14 on the E, G sharp, 15 A, if you like, on the E, and then a full tone bend, and a nice dramatic vibrato if you can. Now, I put a little sting in the tail, to quote Brian himself, on that particular part. So I just went down the scale, so the scale is E major. And it's a nice way to sort of counter the drama of the trumpet fanfare that I have there as well. Now, this bit has a little sort of chromatic trick in it, so it's going to do the same 3 notes to start with, and I'll show you the bend at the end because it's kind of tricky. So, semitone bend. Isn't that lovely, isn't it? And we want to get to this note next, but how we get to it is pre-bend up a tone, and let it down. So overall we get. And then we'll do something similar now for the next section, starting on G sharp or 16 on the E. And we're going to go 16, 18, 19. Semitone bend. And then on fret 21, pre-bend up a tone and let it down. And here's the hardest part of the whole thing. And that's simply, fret 21 and fret 23, and we're going to bend up a semitone to the high E, which is one of the hardest notes to get on the guitar. In a past life, I used to play Journey's Don't Stop Believin', and the last part of the solo is actually at this bend here, and on a Les Paul it's nearly impossible because you don't have as many frets. It's still difficult on this guitar, even with the 24 frets. Now, I use my first and second finger. I wouldn't give out to anybody for using any other combination, you know, anything really, because it's just a difficult note to hang on to. And very often when you see rock guitarists, you'll see them do big dramatic poses like that. If you're doing a bend like this, that actually helps you pivot the note, so you can get that sort of high note up, and then you hit it again and gently let it down. And then we're back to the first position again, which is the neck pickup and quarter volume. And I actually did that quite quickly in the video. Quite proud of myself that I pulled that off. And then what we'll do is, oh, sorry, not that, don't do that. Same melody again. And then to finish, C sharp, and then G sharp, which is 16 on the E, and then a nice high B here, which is 19 on the E. And on the video, I actually turned the volume up a little bit just to get a little bit more out of that note. And in the heat of the moment, I did this. And it was a minor miracle that it worked just like it worked here. And I'll just show you what that is. So E string, and what I'm doing is I'm just hammering on up the scale. So that's open, 2, 4, pull off, and then 4, 5, pull off, 5, 7, 7, 9, 9, 11, and then I play that high E, the 12th fret there. And what I did to finish it, just to give it a little bit of Christmas magic, oops. And what this is a sort of an artificial harmonic, and how I do that, I'll probably see if I can do this from the side, is I go right up over the 24th fret, right over the wire, and with my baby finger, I just tip it like a normal harmonic. I strike it. It's actually kind of difficult to do, and 9 times out of 10 it won't work, but there it is. So that's how you play it. That's all the parts. I hope you enjoyed it. There is, as mentioned, a ToneX one tone that you can download for that if you want to try out those parts. And if there's any interest in the multi-tracks, just drop me a message in the comments and I'll find a way of sharing it. I mightn't be allowed to do it because it belongs to Mickey Mouse and Disney, and they're probably not very happy with that going around, but we'll see what we can do. So stay tuned, probably more sane content coming soon. I have a rake of stuff about the Deacy amp coming out that will allow everybody really to get a good go at the sound. And I have some Quad Cortex Queen presets